that if we could talk about some of your questions, then I get better prepared to answer. Yes, sir.
I still want the answer to what was the cost to replace those bad machines?
And who had to pay for it? Yeah.
We know they had to pay for it.
Why did they tear down the building?
Yeah, that's a good one.
It was so quick.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that
Suddenly.
Ms. Erskine can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the building demolition and a new building had been planned for some time. Probably a couple of years or so.
I looked over there one day. I didn't.
About 3 years? Yes, yes.
The place that
It was
had
just-
more parking at the old building.
It was just weird timing.
Yes, it was. This past weekend, some documentary filmmakers were here who were doing, they had done an HBO documentary on Georgia's voting system back before the 2020 election, and it was for HBO, and it ended up getting nominated for an Emmy, like Olivia. And I hope you win. They didn't win, but we hope you win. And so they said, well, we cannot pass up this coffee story. And they came down, they'll be back, but they came down for a couple of days of filming, and they were so disappointed to go to the office and have just rubble there. But they filmed it anyway, and they made me walk through the rubble talking about, well, here's what I think was over here, here's what I think was over here.
I hope that's temporary.
Again. And I hope people are planning on all sorts of thinking ahead about security of the system and before y'all move in. But your question on the voting system and the equipment, and I want to answer it when they're recording, but don't let me forget to answer why, when they did replace the equipment, it was the wrong, they did it the wrong way, and it didn't help anything. It just wasted a whole bunch of taxpayer money.
Oh, wow.
Of course.
And
So the other question would be restitution. I talked to Jim and you about the civil lawsuit.
yes.
We bring a civil lawsuit to recoup that $450,000.
Wow.
So let me, and I want to talk about that $450,000 on camera, if you don't mind, not make you listen to it twice. But in a civil lawsuit, there are several types of litigation that should be filed here. And we are in the process of trying to lock down attorneys to do it. Because, you know, it's...
Local.
No, we take local if we could get them, but we're thinking, you know, all of Georgia, we're kind of searching. It's hard to take on the state, because you'll ultimately be taking on the state with this as well.
Your kid, you can do it.
One call, that's all.
If the price is right.
Kid, you can
An accident lawyer, can you think of this as an accident?
Let's change
Oh, can somebody let Christine?
Yeah, I got a question.
Yes.
When it comes to finance and everything, how does the ARPA money fit in with that? Because the county received $8.4 million that they're still sitting on ARPA funds, that they haven't did anything for the citizens. Now, in the city, they did some things for the citizens in the city, but countywide, because we've been spoke to them about doing some things countywide, they didn't do anything, so could they use that money to litigate and go and finance their lawyer that they want to research from the outside, over $450,000 he's talking about trying to sue back for? Could they, I think by the end of this month or next month, they have to Yes, ma'am.
Well, you know, I'm gonna come back to that, ordering 50,000 as soon as we got cameras rolling. But, I'll tell you what would be even better is to spend the money, Jim, on if money is needed for independent counsel.
That's right, that's right.
Yes, yeah. If, I didn't realize they were sitting on $8 million.
8.4 million, they used about 250,000, gave all the employees, bonus, but they haven't did anything. Their money is sitting there, doing interest for the last year and a half, so they haven't did any projects, anything with that money, it's still sitting there.
And that's the county.
Yes, ma'am, they got till 2026 to spend it.
Right, 2026.
Yes, ma'am, but they
But
haven't.
they're supposed to, report how they plan to spend it. They were supposed to report now, whether they have
Well,
or
they
not.
have to do about it, either about this month here, September, or either next month.
Yeah.
I know by the end of the year, they got to state how they're gonna spend it. So that'd be something that Mr. Dillon would say, since we have this $8.4 million sitting here, $8 million, give or take, why don't we use some of this for a private counsel for the citizens, since you haven't did anything for the citizens? And that can be a way to finance what they say they don't have the money to do, because they have money still sitting there, that's not part of it.
Gotta have the votes on the county commission to do that.
Sir?
Gotta have the votes on the county commission to do that.
You do, but that also shows the citizens that they're not willing to vote to do that, that they're still against the people
Right.
themselves.
So Jim, maybe you could research a little bit that 8.4 million and see if there are specific uses, if it's a federal grant, I assume it's a federal grant.
It is.
Yeah.
That, you know, how limiting they are in the purposes, and see if we could make, you know, attorneys' fees for independent investigation fit under that. Because it's clear, and I think for those of you all who were there this morning, you know, it's clear that there are way more questions than there are answers. And it's clear that the board members have not been given, or many of the board members have not been given the answers.
And that's not fair to them.
It's not fair to them because they have duties, responsibilities to the public, as well as it puts them in a position to continue to be sued when the body, their public body, is responsible, but yet they don't have the information.
Right.
So, yeah, I think they're going to have to be able to stand up to their attorneys. If the attorneys haven't been giving them the information, be willing to stand up to the attorneys.
So the commissioners that are on there now, they're all new except for the chairman?
The election board members,
Yes.
okay. No, Miss Paula is new, and every other person was there when the breaches occurred. Am I right, Miss Ernestine? The breaches? But Andy joined in January 1, 2021. And the breaches occurred. Right, so it was on his watch too.
That's right.
Yeah, Miss Paula is the only one that's new since the breaches occurred. Right, right.
I took Donnie's place, so
George, tell me when you're rolling. I don't want to miss their, okay. Getting close, you say?
I have 4 cameras on you right now.
Okay, all righty. And we don't have to overdo it because this is real informal. What other questions do you all think we ought to be sure and cover today?
I don't have a question, I think it's more of a comment. Listening at your exhibit when you talked about the laptop. I think that's one of the most important parts of evidence that we will ever see lost if we don't really get with someone and say that needs to be produced by our board. So it's not about GBI, FBI at this moment. It's about we, the citizens, saying some type of way, we need that laptop because the citizens of Coffee County paid for the laptop.
That's
So
right.
actually, the laptop needs to be produced, period.
You are so right, and we've been around and around and around with the county attorneys. And at first, we get this nonsense that, oh, we have no record of a county-issued laptop. And we finally, and that's the way they kept saying, they kept pretending there was no laptop. And I ultimately found out, not only did we have pictures of her using it, we found out how she was using it appropriately so for some election applications. And we knew it had to be a county laptop. And then they started, when we produced the pictures, and the pictures of what appears to be her walking out the door with it, then they started changing their story.
Okay.
And I will come back and tell the whole story in just a minute, but maybe I should just get, I can go? Okay, okay. Well, let's start with the laptop then, yeah.
Okay, what exactly then was Kathy Latham's role in this? What was her position with the election?
Okay. I don't know if y'all heard the question, but the question was, what was Kathy Latham's position? What was her role? How did she get in? What was her role with the election board? Because I think everybody has seen that Kathy is on tape there all day long on the breach on January the 7th.
Why wasn't she at school?
Well, she said under oath that she was at school all day. Yes. And if you all want to look at something sad but somewhat comical, send me a text message and ask me to send you Exhibit 9. And it was something we filed in the lawsuit. And it's very public record. It's got pictures of Kathy from the various videos that we have. Alongside it, it's got the text from her deposition before the videos had shown up. She had assumed, I guess, that there was never going to be any video. And so she would say things like, I taught school all day long that day. Then we showed her coming into the office, at 11 o'clock and leaving at 8 o'clock at night. Then she goes, I never went inside. We show her being right there in the middle of everything. Then she says, well, I don't like getting around people. I wouldn't have gone inside because I don't like getting around people. And then we have a picture of Scott Hall giving her a back rub. It gets, we just go on and on with this, and it's pretty sad but entertaining. And for those of you who maybe haven't read Fonnie Willis's full indictment, they indicted her on perjury for the things that she said that were not true in our lawsuit, when we took her deposition. But going back to the question of what was her role, she was the Coffee County Republican Party chair. She was also the chair of what was called the Under 80,000 Caucus. So for about 120 counties, she was the central point for all of the Republican parties in the counties that have under 80,000 registered voters. So she was can somebody help, Catherine? Thank you. She was a very important person in the Republican Party ladder of things. And she also served on the executive committee of the state board. And she was a Trump-appointed elector, one of the 16 electors who would have legally signed that Trump was elected if he had been elected. But you all know the story of how they had a meeting and signed a document saying that they were the electors for Trump and that Trump had won, when of course it wasn't true. And that's why she is getting indicted both on being what they call a fake elector, as well as her role in Coffee County. And as you know, Misty has been indicted for her role in Coffee County for computer trespassing, that sort of thing, and letting people have the voting system. And Scott Hall who was the bail bondsman from Atlanta, who flew down here. He has been indicted on that. Who else am I forgetting that had the direct indictment?
Why wasn't the county ever changed?
Why didn't Eric Cheney get indicted? We don't know.
Who else was in there from Coffee County?
She did not have an official role at all in the election office, other than being an observer. And so there was nothing that she should have been there observing on the day of the 7th, right? But what had happened is, and a lot of people don't know this story, but Kathy had been to Washington, D.C. in the middle of December, on the 16th and 17th, 18th. She had stayed at the Willard Hotel. Now, the Willard Hotel is a very, very, very fancy and expensive hotel. Well, it turns out that the war room was there for the Trump campaign. I say the Trump campaign, but some of the Trump efforts to try to overturn the election. And it was up there that we believe that she had Giuliani and others. And there was, do you all remember the name? Eric. You'll see his name come up again and again. He was the chief of police in New York, actually during 9/11. But he was a sidekick for Rudy Giuliani, and he got very involved in the Trump campaign, and he had control of a lot of finances. It appears that he paid for the hotel rooms and stuff, up in Washington. Patsy was there during the time that they were trying to plan how to get access to the voting machines across the United States. And you all remember there was a draft executive order that was about to be signed by Trump, but all his advisors told him, do not sign it. But this draft executive order, they didn't come out until months later, said there are two options. One, have the military seize all the voting systems online and rerun the election. Or have the Department of Homeland Security seize it. Well, he wanted to, but even Giuliani and those people said, really bad. I mean, the military seizing voting machines, no, that's a really, really bad idea. And the county was up there during this conversation. Now, she wasn't in the Oval Office, but a lot of these people were. Y'all heard about the unhinged meeting on the night of December the 18th, where there was all this screaming and carrying on in the Oval Office. One of the things they were screaming and yelling about was how to seize the voting machines. And somebody says, why, we don't really need to go try to seize them. We've got friendly people who give us access. And they hatched this scheme. And the next thing you know, the very people, and I can't say that somebody can we let somebody in there? And I can't say that she was directly responsible. We don't have that information, but she was there meeting with them. And by the way, that draft executive order mentions 3 places in the country that they were saying this proves we need to seize the voting machines. Antrim, Michigan, Ware County, Georgia, and Coffee County, Georgia. 3 places in, this is over the whole United States.
Wow.
So you know where they must have gotten that. If we can get the cell phone turned off, that'd be great. The idea of Coffee County, Georgia, and where they could get friendly access. So the next thing that happens, and we were able to capture this through some discovery, next thing that happens is we start seeing a few days later text messages flying back and forth between some of Rudy Giuliani's friends who are attorneys and the people, Sullivan Stricker people, who were the forensic experts who came out from Atlanta, seeing text messages flying around, and we've got them, I can show them to you, saying, hey, great news. We're going to get a written invitation to Coffee County. This was on January 1st. We're going to get a written invitation to Coffee County, and we're going in. And they said, the mayor's been involved. Well, you know who that is. It's Rudy Giuliani. Right, okay, this is right after this big meeting, right after Kathy was there. And so they've clearly been talking for a while, how they don't get Coffee County. So they get the word, they're gonna get written invitation. We've got a text message. Now remember I said that was January 1st. We got a text message on New Year's Eve from Eric to Misty saying, you got that letter out yet? It needs to go to Preston Halliburton. Preston Halliburton was an attorney who was up there with Kathy at the War Women at the Will. And part of all this is this is written invitation needs to go. Erica is for written invitation. He says, your letter. She says, I'll get it out tonight or tomorrow. That was New Year's Eve. The next day, we know that their written invitation was delivered because Bernie Carrick is withholding that as a document he says he's not turning over. You remember Ruby Freeman and Shay, their lawsuit. They've sued Giuliani and others. Bernie Carrick's got the written invitation, and he has told the court he's not turning it over. But we know that it says written invitation to coffee. That's the subject line. We haven't seen it. It'll be very interesting if when that document surfaces. It's probably got Misty's name on it. It may have Eric's name on it. And, Eric apparently told Misty, according to the testimony, Eric apparently told Misty that she had the permission of other board members, that he was relaying permission of the other board members for her to let people in.
Wow.
And, of course, we know at least in some cases that was not true. But, so Kathy then becomes a key figure. And as they are exchanging text messages that day about how their plans to come in, they say, who are our points of contact? And it says points of contact are Misty and Kathy, and their phone numbers are given. And that's the day Scott Hall flies down with his sidekick and the Sullivan Strickler people. And that's a picture of the Sullivan Strickler people right here. This is, it's very ridiculous. Okay, this is in what Christy called today. She's using the old-fashioned name for it. Oh, darn it.
I didn't do it.
I don't want to be connected to the internet. Okay.
All right.
Christy called it the GEMS server, and that's what it was called for years. This is a kind of a different brand. It's the election management server, the EMS server room. It is by law, as Christy will tell you, completely off limits to anyone who is not a full-time employee approved by the board to get in that room. Not all full-time employees can get in there. Only members of the staff, full-time staff, approved by the board can go into this room. When you hear them talking about the EMS server, this is it. These are the two people from Sullivan Strickler. So sorry, whatever's going on here. Who are copying the server, meaning they are copying all of the software for the entire state, which is on the server. So they were let in, and when you hear all these excuses saying they didn't do anything illegal, they didn't do anything illegal, just letting them in the room was illegal, much less copying proprietary and secure software. And so those are two of the team members that were there. Somebody said, who else was there? Who else was there? So first of all, this is kind of looking into Misty's office in server room. And you all remember seeing those pictures where there's the big table out in the conference. This is the big table. This is one of the laptops of the Sullivan Strickler people. This is looking into Misty's office. That's Eric, that's Ed Boyles. They were there virtually all day, even though Eric told Washington Post and the attorneys that he thought everybody that was there, he saw somebody passing through in the elections office and he thought it was the Secretary of State's people. So I'm going to just scroll through real quick. We've had to redact the names on these things, but what these are pictures of the USB sticks and memory cards from the various, and there's the server again, that they were copied. They basically, Christy got every single memory card, every single USB stick, copied it, and then they inventoried it on those tags. And so we know what they did, and we subpoenaed those people in our case, and we got copies of everything they did. But now we have to, we're under all sorts of court restrictions, like they don't even understand. Not that I don't know what to do with it or not, but still, it's happening in secure where what these guys did, once they got it, that very next day, they put it up on their own private part of their website. I say website, their private part of the
Shared server.
And then they have passwords to a lot of their allies. But a lot of our allies, and then those guys gave passwords to others. So we heard Cyber Ninja guy, okay. Cyber Ninja guy was the first person to down. And what he did, once he downloaded all of this, he put the software onto what's called a virtual machine. So in other words, he kind of recreated what's in Christie's office.
Wow.
As if, and then what could happen easily then is all these other people who wanted to test it and work with it could operate it as if they were working in a real operating environment. So that they're not just going to work with the code, they could see how machines would react. So he uploaded it onto a virtual machine, and then other people then downloaded that virtual machine. Now, what would they do with it? After all, wasn't this 2020 election? And, you know, it was over with by that time? No, not only was it not over with, but that same software is being used in their subsequent elections and in the 2022 election. So imagine mischievous people, bad actors, who get the software. Now what they can do is they can write malware, they can write viruses, and test it, because they can test it just like they were, as if they're in Christie's office. Even though she's the access. It's not only her person on the internet. They just, they're going to copy it just like she does. And then they can write malware. Then the danger is that a few million people who know how to write malware, there are millions more, like me, an unskilled person in that, who could be used as an unskilled accomplice to plant it into the system. Like if somebody could work their way into the EMS or the Christie's office and get into the server, whether it's janitorial service or, part-time employee, or somebody who's not supposed to be there, or that's one way to plant malware that can affect every single machine in the county. Or go to the election site for polling places the night before the election. You know how the election are set up. Easy enough. Plug in a USB stick in for a few seconds, and you'll have malware. And our big argument with the voting system here is that on those touch screens, you can plant malware that cannot be detected. And good malware writers are going to write it so that it erases itself at the end of the day. It does its job, it flips the votes,
And then it erases.
it erases the software.
Yeah.
Erases the malware. And, well, I'm picking on Christy, but Christy goes through a massive amount of work to test the machines before they're put in service. Malware writers, if they were to put something in the system at the EMS level, what they can do is write it so that when Christie's testing under logic and accuracy test, it'll be like the Volkswagen Dieselgate, you know that story about how when it was being tested, it was fine. Right. They can write it so that for a test, the malware doesn't kick in. Wait till election day and kick it in, and then erase itself. So that on the screen, let's say people voted for the machine flips it so the QR code says no votes for Marilyn.
And we've had concerns of people telling us they would touch a certain candidate and another candidate was popped up.
There are all sorts of things that you have no real record of what you actually touched. You have a record of what the machine says. You have a record.
And just because you replaced those machines does not break the problem.
Right.
That's what I'm saying.
This is back to the point you were asking about the machinery. So the Secretary of State said, no problem, in September 2022. We'll replace the equipment. First of all, that doesn't do a darn thing about the software that's sitting out there in quiet, right? So they replaced the equipment as if our only concern was that the Sullivan Stricker people put bugs into the system. Now, we need to worry about that. And Rachel Roberts, I need to divert and say, Rachel Roberts did the right thing. She wrote an email to the Secretary of State's office and said, look, we found out about this breach. This was after this problem. We found out about this breach. Don't I need to reinstall the software and you will test it to make sure that nothing bad happens when these people were in? Do you know what they did? They called the county attorney and reported Rachel as if she had done something wrong. Oh. And the county attorney goes, and shut her down. She did the right thing, and, you know, I guess if we had known, if everybody had known then what they know now, and if the county attorneys had been wanting to do the right thing, what they would have said is, Rachel, you've got a point. Let's make sure there's a forensic copy made of the condition of the equipment right now for any kind of crime investigation, and then let's get new software installed. But they didn't need it. They just swept it under the rug. And the Secretary of State took the position, and we have it in writing, they say, and if we get new equipment, everybody will get it with this. No. So they went about getting new equipment, but only a portion of the new equipment. They only got new touchscreens. They did not get a new server. They said, oh, we got a new server a year ago. Wait a minute, you've been operating it with contaminated equipment. You've been putting USB sticks in and out of it that would contaminate. So you've got a contaminated server, you're getting new touchscreens. Now you're going to contaminate touchscreens. So unfortunately, Christy, what you've now got is you've got a system that could well be contaminated because we know that there's unauthorized access for the original server. It then, you know, was used with touchscreens, and the touchscreens are now used with the new server. So if there was malware, we're not saying it was, you're really, unfortunately, not safe. And the federal judge, Judge Whitmer, before the November election, saw that that was the problem. And she asked the Secretary of State, she said, please don't, she couldn't order it, she didn't, it was really kind of outside the scope of the case. She asked the Secretary of State, please don't just replace a portion of that equipment, replace the server too. And he just defied it. It would have cost him $5,000. I mean, Secretary's budget is millions and millions and millions. Okay, so going to your question about replacing the equipment, how much did it cost? We understand that it cost over $400,000 to replace the equipment and do it wrong. And the Secretary of State has said, I'm going to bill Coffee County. It says, I'm going to bill the people who are responsible. So far, to our knowledge, he has not done so. We are curious as to why. we think he doesn't really want any more known about what happened. And if he starts trying to bill the Coffee County $400,000, I think people are gonna start saying a whole lot more. And Secretary has never really wanted this to come to light.
I sent an email, I never replied.
I'm shocked. I'm just shocked. Yeah.
And I asked that question, what was the cost and, to the taxpayer?
Right.
And never got it.
It's the taxpayers of Georgia that funded it, but not the Coffee County taxpayers to my, that I know of so far.
Except I don't know what's the taxpayer in Georgia. I mean, if I lived in Atlanta, I bet that, I would be part of a civil lawsuit, and I'd put my money back.
We should ask for a whole lot more in such a civil lawsuit.
Yeah.
There's a lot more that needs to come out. Yes, sir.
That info has to be available by open records, no?
Yes,
Got
yes. The information on how much it costs to replace, yes, that's about $125,000.
Same thing, do you know, how much they billed, county, for the attorney?
What Tim asked, and by the way,
Joe,
Yes.
by the way, this is Timothy Pratt, who is reporting for The Guardian. And The Guardian, as you all, some of you met him before when he was here for the town hall. They published a front of the blog story. They're an international news outlet. So millions of people have read the story at the town hall. And he just asked, does anybody know how much the attorneys have been paid for all this work that has gone on these last few years about Coffee County?
Even the new attorneys are.
Even the new attorney. Yeah, but when I try to, this is driving me crazy. I don't know what's going on.
But the board of elections can find that out too, right?
But let me tell you what happened when I asked. It's flashing on and off, Mr. George.
I'll look at
When
it.
I did a public records request asking what Alden Smith had charged some months ago now, y'all won't believe the answer that came back.
Pretty.
That Alden Smith hadn't filed a bill for like a year and a half. Wow. Now, or with the county elections. Something sounds wrong with that. Now, I have not followed up in the last several months. That answer was several months ago. And that's the question I think the board should be asking.
Yeah, the board members could find out all of this.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly public records can too.
Yeah.
But, kind of asking the question, wait a minute. If Alden Smith is not being paid for this, why not?
For the new
You
attorney.
know, that kind of raises a question, doesn't it, from a county attorney's standpoint. And there are a lot of questions about what Alden Smith knew that apparently didn't tell the board, or at least didn't tell all of them. And question after question after question we ask, we keep finding out that the information was hidden from the board. Where are they from? Alden Smith is a big firm. They have an office in Tifton that works with this county. But they have a 400 lawyers out in their lab office, and they have offices in Denver, New Jersey, and Charlotte, and I mean, it's a big firm.
And so Tony Brown was working with Alden Smith.
He's a partner at Alden Smith.
So the Coffee County contract with Alden Smith.
Correct. So what Olivia said, she was asking if Alden Smith has a contract with Coffee County. Yes, yes, they do. Through Tony Brown and Jennifer Herzog. It is interesting, the county basically does not answer any of our requests, either the subpoenas or the records. He has Jennifer answer them. Jennifer is the one that we get all the, I won't necessarily say answers, I will say responses.
where is she from?
She works at the Tifton.
She's not from here.
Yeah. Let's see, her name is Jennifer.
Something Herzog. Where's that?
Where's
Well,
that? And,
she's with Hall 50,
yeah,
right?
she's with all
So is
of
that why he put the,
but she is in the Tifton office.
put the all?
And I see, here's a lot of video that has Tony Rattle in the election office for days on end, right before the so-called recount that went bad. He was in there for days and days and days and days and days. And that's a whole nother story that reminded me of that. I want to answer your questions first, but I want to at some point talk about what appeared to be a purposeful delay to hold state up from certifying Biden's election in December of 2020. And, Coffee County was a hold up.
Yeah, where was the last one?
And it looks purposeful once you start looking at videos. Sure. Okay, so somebody asked about the laptop. We talked a little bit about it. That the laptop, now she had a desktop that she operated primarily, but I believe she used the laptop for various applications, including making photo IDs for people who didn't have photo IDs. She kept a copy of the vote rolls on there. She used it to take to precincts. Apparently, when she would visit precincts and they have informational needs, and I guess she took it to conferences with her, so presumably it had her emails on there too. Well, she was forced to resign on February 25th, 2021. She apparently got warning the night that she was going to be fired. It looks like the warning probably came from Eric. I can't say that for sure. But she gets warning that she's going to be fired. And what we know from the video is the next morning she comes in and starts cleaning out her desk and her office and takes things to her car. We can see her taking all this stuff to her car, same with Jill, preparing to be fired. And one of the things we see her do is take that laptop, take it into her office along with a light ring. You know how you use a light ring for like a Zoom call or something? She takes that into her office, and then she comes out of her office with what is probably a laptop and a light ring and a tote bag, and takes it to her car. And James Barnes, who was her successor, says that he never saw that silver laptop. But yet, that silver laptop was definitely in use as a county asset. It walked out the door, but where did it go? I can't say it went to her house. Who knows where it went? And
Was Jill involved in any of this?
Jill was an eyewitness to it all. It doesn't, we don't see any messages from her or her interacting much. She watched it all of her. Didn't record it. She must have known that there was something wrong. And is there any more pizza left? If there is, please have it. If not, too bad, too bad. Oh, some cookies. Cookies. And feel free, just jump up. Don't wait for me to finish.
They're extremely tight.
They're
Real tight.
Yeah, they're real time. They're real time. So I'm sure Jill was following directions. So the laptop disappears. And we don't hear any more about that. We keep asking under subpoena, under records request. We want the email searched from that laptop, all the election records searched from that laptop. And we keep hearing back from Jennifer Herzog. No laptop, we don't know anything about your laptop. No. So the GBI comes in. GBI comes in September of last year. So a year ago. GBI comes in, and Tony Brown says, well, Misty used a laptop. Apparently GBI asked for it. Tony doesn't turn it over to them. Tony doesn't turn it over. Now, how would you and I get away? GBI came knocking on our door and on our laptop. We couldn't say, no, thank you. So they come back. May of this year. They had asked in September of last year. They come back in May of this year and said, okay, how about that? We want. And as I said this morning, the attorneys for the board said, no, we'll have to see what the budget. This was the laptop that didn't exist. Right. Okay. Then the next answer that comes back is, we don't know. So, I'm sorry, Paul, what was your question?
You know, in I what is the question? Can the IP address on the laptop actually be subpoenaed? Because there's, you got the laptop, and you have the IP address that comes with the laptop. So my question is, could the IP address, even though you don't have the laptop per se, as long as you got the IP address, you got the code right there, right?
And of course, they're going to say, they're saying, we don't know anything about laptops, so we don't know what IP, you know, and this is really important to mention today. All the emails are wrong, they claim. They claimed that after she left, that all of hers and Misty hers and Jill's emails were
Statewide.
Was that,
go ahead, sorry.
was the laptop purchased by the city or the county?
We believe it was purchased by the county.
So, can we look back at purchases by the county?
I hope somebody will dig into that, maybe the board will do
And
that.
then maybe find out, you know, what company sold it to the county, and then find out the IP address on that?
Well, and our IP address, of course, would relate to it would be what the county used. And the county has just not been cooperative. And either trying to find that laptop, even though it was the county asset, the county records. Even if it was not their laptop, it was just a minute on the minute that this team was generous enough to loan her laptop to the county. It still had records on it that are federally required to be retained. And so the county has every right to go after this, but they refused. And that's really the kind of thing when we say the board needs to be taking action. You know, we think the board should be standing up and saying, attorneys, cut off whatever you need to move forward. If we have to find out it's the bottom of the lake, we'll find out it's the bottom of the lake. But you guys go get our records that were on that laptop.
And now that they're learning, maybe they'll do it.
Let's hope that, you know, their attorneys have known about this for a very long time.
Well,
And the question is, why haven't their attorneys been telling them this?
like I said this morning, if anybody on that board that was there at the time is complicit in that debris or in knowing that they need to resign.
Yeah.
They need to.
And the attorney.
And then,
Yeah.
just from an ethics standpoint.
Yeah.
Right. Let me tell you about the videos, because everybody knows about videos. Now, everybody's seeing what's seeing it and here. I can show you lots of clips. We eventually got the videos of evidence for different cameras in the election office. From the middle of November 2020 till February 19th, 2021. So that's a lot of videos. But when you started asking in March of 2022, county attorney said, no, there's no such video, it's all been over there. They don't have it. We asked, because we knew it had been used to fire this. We wanted to back up fire this video videos. We knew it had been used to fire this. We said, well, we didn't have personnel file, personnel file. And so we kept asking and asking. Kept getting the note, that's all been over there. So when we got the federal judge to let us issue subpoenas, it's a little stronger than what the register was, right? We issued a subpoena, same thing, it's standard. That was in June of 2020, last year. Nope, we didn't have any securities to go, it's all over. Then the GBI took over the case, not from us, they took over from the state in August 15th. On August 27th, apparently sometime in that period period shortly after they took over, they asked for the video. Suddenly, the video surfaces. And they write us our article and say, oh, you know, this video I've been asking about for 6 months. It just appeared in the exterior reports. We believed them that there was no more existing. That was August 27th. Then the depositions took place. Lo and behold, after the depositions, in the middle of September, more video appears. So they waited until after, you know, Jim rightly says, wait a minute, you guys, the taxpayers were paid for Alden Smith to go and defend Eric Cheney and tell him when to plead the fifth. They had the videos that we had asked for, and here they were defending Eric Cheney when he's saying, no, I don't know anything about all this and pleading the fifth. You know, something is very, very wrong.
But these geniuses and Bruce and that, did they not think that there was going to be video in that building? Were they that stupid? I mean, really.
But you have to catch it at the right time. It's
They
going.
thought they were going to get away with it. They thought Trump was going to never talk. You know what, Einstein said there's two things in the universe and human stupidity. He's not sure about the universe.
Right. Well, and so what some stripper people did, picture, showed you what they got, I mean, that's true. They got Cindy O, who was, you know, one of the cross attorneys, to assure them, and I believe it's in writing all the time, but that she hired them to work for her as an attorney, and that she had every right to access. I think they certainly knew better, but they were pretending that they had been given rights by an attorney.
Arrogance, maybe.
Yeah, arrogance. And then who knows what she was relying on. But certainly even the board of elections did not have the authority to let anybody walk in the room. Secondly, copy proprietary software. You know, a lot of the drug people think, well, our software ought to be open to the world. And, well, maybe it ought to be, but that's not what the law is, right? You know, the law is no, you don't steal somebody else's software. And you certainly don't post it on the internet. So, you know,
Well, tell some of them about the role you played with that telephone conversation. They didn't think they were going to be discovered or found out about, but had it not been for your phone conversation, I think
everything was there.
everything would have happened. So some people don't know.
Yeah, so y'all heard on TV about Scott Hall, the bail bondsman, who led the effort, let's see, here's a picture of him here.
By the way, you need a new HDMI cable.
We need a new HDMI cable.
Yep.
So, yeah, no doubt that we won't look at too much more of this. Right, let's see. We should see him here in a minute. Yeah. Right there. Yeah, we've all done his bow shot. There he is, right here. He's the guy who flew down. Okay, so.
Everybody else down too. He chartered the plane that brought it.
Chartered the plane.
Exactly.
Now.
And you bragged about it to her.
Yes. So,
Yeah. No, I heard it.
on March the 7th, 2021, was a Sunday night, and I was probably procrastinating doing some work I needed to do. And I get this call from Scott Hall. And I didn't know Scott Hall. I had run into him at the audit in Fulton County. I met him for like 30 seconds, and that was enough. And so, you know, these months go by, and he calls me on a Sunday night. And he starts out the call by letting me know he's a tough guy. No, He lets me know he's a very successful bail bondsman, that he knows everybody, he knows people who do all sorts of things. He's letting me be very aware that he runs with criminals. And then he says, look, I've got a friend, and I have had him hack into your litigation files. And I'm not finding what I want. And you need to give it to me. Did you record this? At that moment, she asked me, did I record it? At that moment, my first instinct was to slam the phone down on it. And my next instinct was to, what, this guy has just admitted to a felony.
Yeah.
I'm going to act like a sweet little lady and keep him on the phone and be so impressed. And so I found an old telephone, put him on speakerphone and hit the record button at that point. And he was talking about all kind of crazy stuff. And I kept trying to come back to him hacking my files. We didn't want to talk about that anymore. Of course, he didn't know it was being recorded. And then just out of the blue, he burst out 50 minutes into the recorded call. So I've been on the phone with him now almost an hour. And he just kind of blurts out, oh my God, we hired a private jet to fly out and image every hard drive that copied every freaking ballot. And we don't have a report. They won't give me a report. And I'm like, whoa, what? And so I thought, okay, I gotta make sure this recording is working. And he goes on. And he says, yeah, the people who were the same ones who went to Michigan. Remember a while ago I said that in Trump's draft executive order there was enter Michigan? It was the same people who had been to enter Michigan. And had taken the software there, which a judge had given them the right to do. It was in a lawsuit. But the judge had said, and you will not copy it, and you will not share it with anybody, and you will keep it very much under this protective order. What did they do? Put it on the internet, and it got shared all around. And you all remember when Michael Dell had that forum down in South Dakota a few years ago? It was being passed around by everybody. Their code. And it's very similar to the Coffee County, Georgia code. So this guy says it was AU. It's the same guys who were in Michigan. Well, all of this was in March of 2021. That went under my head. I didn't even know what he was talking about. And later on, many months later, when I replayed the tape, I'm going, whoa, he says these were the same people that were in Andrew. He didn't say Andrew, but when he said Michigan, I thought, I know. And then little by little, we started digging that out. So as I said at the town hall last time, you know how perfect, Trump claims, oh, I had the perfect phone call with Ravensburg. Oh, okay, Scott says he had the perfect phone call. But as soon as the judge opened discovery in our case, which would have been June 2021, we started asking the state, what kind of records do you have? Any unauthorized access, copying, this, that. We ask every way for something. Nothing, there's nothing, we don't have anything about it. And one thing led to another, and eventually, I found this whole thing. I said, we've got to play this through now and get them to answer what in the heck this is and what kind of investigation did they do, which turns out nobody knows to this day how they buried things. But then after the judge became aware of how real this was, maybe she let us issue subpoenas. We issued subpoenas to Scott. He evaded the subpoenas from Marks. We tracked him down to States, to Florida, to all over the place. He ended up going to Costa Rica to evade servant. Now he's in the business of bail bondsmen. Bail bondsmen are in the business of making the system work, right? Making people show up at their court dates, right? Making the criminal justice system work, right? And here he was evading the service of the subpoena. And so we never got parents and then in terms of the board, I guess it was the attorneys decided Middlestein should be the spokesman for the board in the deposition of the board. So, unfortunately, we had to take that deposition before we knew that there were these additional videotapes, where we would have some very good questions. So there is just so much to be learned yet, you know, about who knew about this, when did they know it, what did they do to bury it. One of the things that just makes no sense, and somebody locally, surely there are people locally that have the answer to this, and that is, you know, so we go back to February the 24th, the night before Misty is going to be relieved of her duties. In the evening, she begins to tell by text message to board members by text, hey, I'm going to go speak at the Rotary Club tomorrow to tell them about election, blah, blah. And they write back saying, no, you better not do that. You better ask Tony Rowell before you go do that. And you can tell she's kind of surprised when you're looking at these text messages. And they say, yeah, with all that's going on, and I'm paraphrasing a bit here, but with all that's going on, we need to lay low. And then Matt McCullough chimes in and says, yeah, Tony says that there's a new lawsuit and a potential another one that's coming along. And Eric or somebody says, yeah, we need to lay low, don't go to Rotary. She goes, I don't know anything about any new lawsuit. Because, you know, normally she would be the one who would have gotten served. Because I don't think about a lawsuit. And so that was the night before she gets fired. And then you can tell in these text messages that she and Eric, they have some conversation. And it's pretty clear from what happens from there is she knows she's about to be fired. And so, of course, the next day she goes and cleans up her desk and takes what she wants, which is a really bad idea. If you're going to hire somebody to let them know that you're going to do it, you've got plenty of time to clean stuff up. So also that evening, she gets a text message from a guy by the name of Kurt Olson. Kurt Olson is the attorney for Michael Bell and my Bella. She gets a message from him saying, hey, Misty, I'm so-and-so, would you give me a call? Then this is the night before she's about to get fired. The word is getting out that she's getting fired. Within 24 hours, she gets fired at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Within 24 hours of her who lays those it's in a room. It's safe for a couple hours. As I said last time, we kind of down with this for the nightlife in Douglas. It's why he flew down here. And that's still quite a mystery that his attorney calls Misty a few hours before she's fired. Lindell flies from Mar-a-Lago to Washington for just a short bit of time, Washington to Douglas. Late at night, stays a few hours and takes off. That just is a little too suspicious. To my knowledge, the board has not asked one word about that and to try to find out what happened. You know, when Jim and Catherine and I talk so much about the board doing its own investigation, they need to be asking questions about this. What was going on? How could this happen? How can we know that this won't happen again? What if we got set up in place? And then what are the implications now that our software is sitting out there in the wild for people to attack the 2024 election? Well, obviously the answer wasn't just, oh, we'll just go get some new touchscreens. That doesn't do any good. But, you know, the story just gets so incredibly tangled. So we see these text messages happening the night before the election, before Misty gets fired. And with this reference to, well, there's some new litigation. There's a new lawsuit. So the board meets the next afternoon. And there was a public notice saying the board's going to meet, but it's mainly going to be an executive session because they have two things they're going to talk about. Litigation. Now remember, this was just a week before their normal meeting. So whatever it is, it's urgent. You know, because they would have had a meeting the first week in March, and this was February 25th. They say in their notice it's going to be primarily executive session on litigation and on personnel matters. Misty reads that, she finds it on the website. She apparently calls Eric then. She takes a photo, a screenshot of the notice of the meeting. And just in one of those funny little things, you can see her browser, what else is open on the browser. Now this is the night of the 24th. What else do you think is open on the browser? MyPillow.com. So the very night that she has gotten the call from MyPillow's attorney. So she's been looking up MyPillow. Looking up MyPillow.
She was ordered.
And Michael and Dale was going to hand deliver it. Okay. By jet, by private jet. And so then the next day, the board meets behind closed doors. And what we know from eyewitnesses is that there were 3 county commissioners who came to the meeting. But now, and all along, the county attorneys have said, no, didn't happen. They did not meet. They were not there. There was no quorum. They weren't there. Did not meet. Yet we all know that that at least 3 of them were there. They are still being, thank you, Chris. So the meeting happens behind closed doors. We file later on public records request saying, okay, what was the subject of this litigation? All we're getting is shrug of the shoulders. Let her go for that, but did not put on the record anywhere that it was the breach.
Right.
And that is why we're getting so much lack of honesty about who met in that meeting and what they decided. And that's why we want to see good minutes created for, if we had good minutes created for the board meeting, it would come out as to what the truth was.
Right.
But Tony Rowell took the minutes. And there were all sorts of things that we know were wrong. He said the meeting adjourned at, I'll call it, I don't remember exactly what time, 3:09 or something like that. They didn't even call Misty over. We can tell when she left her office because of the videos.
Right.
They didn't even call her over until after that time. You know, there are all sorts of problem records in Tony's minutes. And we would like to see the board call him out on it and say we want corrected minutes. We'll learn a lot that way.
This is so disheartening. I
I'm
mean,
sorry.
most of these people are nice people. I mean, I know them for years, and I would have never, ever thought that something like this would be so devious and so deep and so illegal that they would want to get involved.
You know, they allow them to
Cover it up.
allow them to resign instead of trying to make it look bad at school.
But it is bad, and that makes it worse.
But same thing with this, they let her resign, they give her a resignation or whatever, instead of bringing legal charges against her. Then they say, okay, let's just fire her again. Right. And doctor reasoning for the fire.
One part of me wants to feel sorry for them, and the other side of me says, this is just so wrong.
It's so wrong, and they put all our votes at danger
Yes.
by letting this happen
Yes.
and not dealing with it immediately. And in the Secretary of State, the same. He's tried to bury it as well, and they don't want to admit what a big problem this is.
Right.
So to your point, that the board didn't say, wait a minute, we're reporting you to law enforcement, and you were fired, fired, as much as you can possibly be fired. That would have been on the record, and then hopefully what would have been prevented is, that within a few weeks, she was working on Truthland County, accessing their computers.
Right.
And getting paid a ton of money for it. Way more than she was getting paid here.
That was amazing.
It was amazing, but they didn't. The board wouldn't put in writing that they had really fired her.
Because I think it's something that she knows, that they know, and they know she will reveal it.
Exactly
You
right.
know what I'm saying?
Exactly right. I think that's exactly right.
Exactly.
She knows. Maybe way on up the ladder.
Can I say this? Sure. The other issue that I look at is that, in the meeting when it was said that Wesley made his own decision to, Coffee County to pay for the attorneys. And that's ridiculous. That is preposterous and ridiculous.
Right.
That you wronged us, but then we got paid.
Yeah. Well,
And honestly, it's you wronged us, and now we as the citizens, we have to pay for the attorney, that's being used. Come on now, I mean, this is.
And there's something that I think that people outside of Coffee County don't understand about the people in Coffee County, is that the thinking is, if you don't like it here, move. Honestly, that's the reaction you get. If, don't talk about, this is my home, and I understand that, but why don't you want to make it better? You have to address your problems to make things better.
When you bring that down, whoever you are, and we know who,
Yeah.
you are a traitor
Yes.
to your community, you're a traitor to your people.
The majority of the people.
You can sit there and talk whatever you want to, you're a traitor.
You are.
This is my opinion, that the majority of the people who were making the decision whether or not to report this, if it had been one against their candidate of choice,
It would have been awful.
they would have reported it.
Right.
But their candidate was Carrie Coffee County anyway.
Right.
That didn't.
So, why rock the boat?
Yeah.
Why rock the boat? If it was in favor of another candidate that they want to support, then they would have been like, no, really protesting this, and let's do whatever we want. That's right. But it comes down to whether you like it or not. It comes down to a political decision. My candidate against your candidate. And in Coffee County, the majority of us, like it or not, I'm sorry, it comes down to this versus that.
Yeah.
I have another question.
But they'll tell you, everything's fine. Yeah. There's no racial tension.
I have another question. Yes, you might know this, and somebody in here might know it. But I heard that Ed Bowles was employed at one time by the GBI. Is that correct?
I don't know.
Duty?
Somebody
I
was.
don't know. Ed Bowles. Now, was Ed on the board?
I heard that he had been.
Was he on the board?
No, he's from the town. His dick.
That's all was he there?
He had.
Yes, sir.
I've been following this up here ever since it started. And a lot of people, I'm sure you're paining in your heart about what happened here. But what pains me, I'm gonna get to the free press, what pains me is that I got a call December 21st, 2010, from a group of people in Quitman called Quitman 10+2. And I followed that case for almost 5 years. And I'm not gonna get into it, but they just railroaded those people. But they did win the case. But one of the girls died from depression and stress. Lula Smart, the only one they did try, she got it on tape. She was on CNN across all your media. She was contemplating suicide because of the stress that they put upon those people, and they did nothing wrong. So what pains me is that just think about the Quitman 10+2, and I'm out here with my camera as a social media guy, recording in all these cities where the same thing is happening. Brian P. Kemp lying on the stand. The Secretary of State was told this great Glenn Archie, his lead investigator. I gave him DVDs, complaints about what they did in Quitman, and they never followed up on it. From there, I went to 18 cities and said, I cannot get no civil rights group, Rachel Maddow, nobody will go back to these cities that I have recorded and documented and assist these people. A lot of people been hurt so bad. They family members, someone went to go to the hospital. Christopher Wright in Dawson, Georgia, was shot 6 times, lived in his backyard. All this dealing with voting rights and blacks holding office, because I tried to get it to say, Abram, this. All this talking about voting rights, voter impediments, all of this is important. But I haven't seen nobody address this point right here. And I'm almost to deliver a baby. And if I deliver a baby, no, it will be very painful for me. But this is the pain that's in me. Here's why. Nobody's talking about after you do what you're supposed to do, you get in the polling place, you act to vote the people that you want in office, and then this same pattern of practice kick the people out of office.
Yep.
For no reason whatsoever. This is what I put up with. And what I don't understand is why nobody in America would listen to some of the videos that I have. When I came to Olivia knows these people that I'm talking about. She met some of them. Linda Harris, they kicked her out. Warren, these are mayors, and they kicked them out of office for no reason. And so it bothers me. I mean, I want the election voting process fixed, but that's only a small part of it.
Yeah.
You go out and you do everything you're supposed to do, nobody mess with machines, and you get voting office. Then they kick you out. That's what they did to Olivia. The same thing out there in other cities. Olivia kept her job by the grace of God. But I know that all these other places that I've been to, those people railroaded out of office after all the correct stuff was done at the polling place to get them in office. And then they kicked them out. And some of them, like, yeah, and then, see that? I had all 18 cities that I've been to, there were 2 white people. They were mayors. They attacked them too. But they were so much crazy until they would not talk to me. Because if you give it to me, I'm going to report it. And, but it just, and I don't talk much, but this is what gets me as an individual. To see, and I'm retired military. And all of this shit they told us about freedom of this and freedom of that, code of conduct, this and all. Where is it? And in some of my videos, I just can't, what really gets me is these veterans who served like I did during the Vietnam War era. And they don't say nothing about all this corruption. They don't say nothing.
Well, we've made a start here, and this is way different than it was just a few months ago, right? I mean, today's meeting was fabulous, where you all welcomed the comments, and the comments you got were on the side of transparency, doing the right thing, getting to the bottom of things, which was not the case. Jim, what meeting was that? Maybe June? Where a lot of people who came to the meeting were just in the cover-up mode. And as Jim pointed out, GBI claims to be finished with their investigation. Turned it over to the Attorney General's office in the middle of August, and quite frankly, I don't think they worked very hard down here to see what really happened.
Was it the local GBI office that handled
Now,
this?
there's one out of DeKalb County, well, I mean, their state, is the headquarters. They just happen to be in DeKalb County. Okay. And my impression from interviewing with them is they really didn't want to know. I could be wrong.
It just runs so deep.
You know, in equipment 10, let me say this. Mr. Boone was a postal clerk, and he's the one started everything about equipment 10 plus 2 with fraudulent vote casting and that type of thing. And when he worked at the post office, and he watched Luther Smart drop bundles, according to him, bundles of absentee ballots in a bag. And he took those ballots, gave them to a private investigator outside of the chain of command of the Postal Service. They didn't do nothing to him. And then, just like you said, and then when the people started crying out about it, and then they had to call them in, and Brian P. Kemp, when he was Secretary of State, they ended up giving him a reprimand or something like that, but he still got his job. Yeah. How can you, and when the election lady, she took back from her precinct, not the precinct, it's what they call it, the Board of Elections, took them to her house to count the votes.
Oh, yeah.
She hired her granddaughter to help her count. Never advertised that position before the public. We brought all this up. The Secretary of State, Brian B. Kemp, his lead investigator, Glenn Austin, with all those other complaints, nothing done about it. So I told you, I'm about to give birth.
Yeah.
Well, we're not going to give up. We're going to keep doing it. And I wish we had time to do.
This is why I appreciate
I'm so sorry.
This is why you guys sometimes when I see you. See, that's why I love you so much. When I see what you are doing, I just thank you so much. So just forgive me when I get beside myself and I tell you
We're happy for your enthusiasm and to push us on.
Over there.
Yeah. Did you say who had a question? Miss Paula. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I apologize.
Well,
Somebody else has some cards?
No, okay.
Somebody?
No, I was ready.
Sorry. I didn't hear.
Did you have a question?
I did.
It will be easier to understand you if you just put your mask on. It's okay. We'll try to listen hard.
I'm sure you do. Thank you.
Okay.
There's two elements to Mr. Hudson's requests, and it seems to me to the board's choices moving forward. One is what happened, and the other is what can we do for the future, right? Plain English. And I'd like to hear your thoughts about the difference between the two, because politically speaking, it's going to be really easy, and that's what where Chairman Stone, is it? Just did with me in a 10-minute talk, is try to skew the conversation towards, the future. We're going to train everybody better, and it just seems to me that it'll be easy and expedient to point to changing machines, getting the new director certified, and giving her the only copy of the key, and 2 or 3 other things, and then never address the 20 or 30 questions between you and the president, who knows how many other people, as to what exactly happened.
Well, that's why we're not going to shut up about them getting to the bottom of what happened. And if it takes more lawsuits, we will be working to try to get attorneys for those lawsuits if it takes more lawsuits to get to the bottom of it. And I know Jim's not about to give up coming to the meetings demanding more transparency. The citizens, need to keep coming demanding the answers.
Well, you see, politically, even the word transparency. Look, we're being transparent. Now, one person has a key about what happened in the past. Right. See what I mean?
it's our fault if they try to deflect and try to say, oh, there's only one key now and this and that. That's our fault if we let them get away with it.
Right.
You know, if we need to keep them there forever in public comment, you know, till they answer. Yes. Yes.
Where's the city of Douglas? Where are representatives? This is my second meeting. I don't see one commissioner here. Where's the other people? They don't care.
I don't know Mayor Polk, but I called him out of the blue, and this months ago, and said, I'd really like to talk to you about what happened and about how it can affect the city's elections and all of your constituents. And I don't remember his exact words, but he basically said, leave me alone.
I'm not surprised.
I didn't think it was anything. Yeah, and I said, please meet with me. And would you and your dad meet with me?
And he's retired military.
That's a very good question. I'm gonna start putting it in my video. I'm gonna address that. I think that's a very good question. I'm gonna leave you like that.
And like she just said, Ms. Mary just said, and the county commissioners.
Absolutely.
And they all invited to the town hall, everybody. And let me say this part, somebody said to me that they heard that it was kind of like a racial thing that we were doing. So if anybody got that impression, they can clear it up. No, not at all. This was public for anybody. I put it on Facebook. She shared it, Ms. Catherine.
I shared it too.
Hey,
Yeah.
when the president's sentences are handed out, they'll be pointing fingers at each other.
That's right.
They'll be squealing
Yeah.
about each other. Then the real stuff, then the real truth will come out.
I hope so, but I hope it comes to the public. I'm afraid so much of it has been in the deal making of who gets charged, who doesn't get charged. We've got to find a way that it comes
But
public.
Douglas, the city of Douglas, and Coffee County people, and the elected officials need to understand, if you don't bring the truth out, then who wants to come here? Who wants to come to Liberty?
That's right.
And who wants to start business here?
Exactly.
I mean, if the elected officials can't be trusted,
Exactly.
then who wants to come here?
And how can you trust the elections if we know that the equipment and the software is compromised,
Right.
and our election board won't stand up and do anything?
Exactly. How can you trust the election process? You can't.
And I'm embarrassed to even have to offer this as a suggestion or an idea.
Hold on, everybody, we're gonna get an idea.
But to allay some of the feelings that it's a black issue or, not white issue, whatever, I will offer up. My church is very inclusive and would be more than glad to have us meet in the social hall at any time, and you just to show unity.
Right. Thank you.
And Pastor Bruce here has been marvelous, and I'm sure he would be delighted to hear that, because he's wanted to see other churches.
I'm not, I don't mind going to any church, anybody's church.
Right.
But I just think that's something, people get their ideas.
What I told you said, this is what I've been to 2 meetings up here. I'm not, because this been going on. And my question is this: why and how can not only Preston, Douglas Now, and Douglas Enterprise just wipe them to the side, but what about all these other prominent news media sources that are not following this as vigorously as they should? That lets you know that somebody is being controlled, and they don't have no shame in their game.
Are you talking about like CNN?
Yeah, well, no, we ain't going that far. Around here, there's no TV station. All been Jacksonville. Why are they covering this?
I've tried my best with Nathan, Albany. I haven't done too much with Jacksonville, you know, and cannot get their attention on this story.
I know I could not try.
Maybe, I don't mind, everybody send an email over there to
That's right.
to Albany.
You gotta do a
And I have text messages and emails and phone calls, and it's like they don't.
Watch this. The equivalent 10 plus 2. Her Lula Smart first child was in trial, her second child was in trial. They tried her third time. When they took it to court, that court case was 19 days. No news media, no TV station, but me. They don't give a damn. I mean, I've seen all of this stuff.
Well,
That's why you have to go to the bigger.
Yeah, it's much bigger than, yeah, I see the big picture. I tried to get Stacey Abel's attention. I just told her the way I felt about her. I sure did. It ain't no black or white thing.
I'm hopeful that as these trials come up in Atlanta, and so much is shown on TV, and as the Atlanta news and CNN and MSNBC keep carrying this news,
The Guardian.
The Guardian, yes, the Guardian, you know, it will help force more local news coverage. And I think you all need to say to some of the advertisers of Douglas Now.
Y'all listen, tell them.
The advertisers of Douglas Now need to say to Robert,
Yes.
Robert, you need to let the people know what's going on. Don't you?
That's one in my video too. I had that. Y'all made a video with me. The issue that all think more I thought.
Anybody got anything else they want to cover while we're here?
So how do we want to move forward? What's the plan, next plan? I got $8 for a doctor.
Okay, all right, next plan. You know what? We need to show up again for the board meeting. And what we can do between now and then is we can maybe circulate ideas for asking for specific actions from the board next time. And ask some of our board members, please make this motion. Here, one motion, go clean up all of the minutes of your meetings. Expose everything. How can they say no to that? You know, that for one. Also, going back to Jim's petition and say, look, don't be using money as an excuse. It's clear from what we know now that you guys were not diligent.
Right.
And you haven't been diligent. Somebody needs to come in here, we insist.
Bring a friend.
Yeah, bring a friend to the meetings. And, you know, enough public pressure
Right.
will start making a difference, particularly as our board members are getting more information.
Right.
You know, Andy Thomas told me he wanted to get some more information. And
He should have
what was that?
been, he should have been here today.
I tried to get him to come. And I'm going to try to maybe meet with him privately, and Jim offered to meet with him privately to, you know, to try to get him up to speed a little.
Who is that?
Andy Thomas, one of the
No,
board members
look
here.
at
Thomas, yeah.
no, that's who you said.
Yeah,
That's what you said.
yeah.
They have jobs that I don't know if they can take away.
Well, and I offered to meet with him after 5 o'clock.
Well, I mean, as far as to come to this meeting.
Right, to come to this meeting, right. He said he might be able to go for a few minutes, but he wasn't. I guess he decided he couldn't, but I told him I'd hang out and meet with him tonight or by Zoom or whatever. And I'm always, Miss Ernestine, Miss Paula, and spread the word to your friends on the board. I'm happy to take phone calls, Zoom, email,
I think
whatever.
clarification, was Matthew on the board at the time?
Yes, Matt McCullough was on the board at the time, Wendell Stone was on the board, Miss Ernestine, Andy Thomas. The only person who was not on the board at the time was Miss Paula. And all these board meetings went by, even after Washington Post had begun to reach out to Wendell and others and say, what happened? And he didn't bring that information to the board. Eric didn't tell anybody. You know, the board just kept meeting without dealing with this. Amazing.
Right.
Well, thank you all. I applaud you.
Thank you. go to just meet you, y'all make sure y'all get numbers maybe, if that's okay with you?
Yeah, so, okay. Anybody, my telephone number is 704-292-9802. And if you text me, I'll send you the stuff that that is like a 45-page something. 704-292-9802.